Good morning. We're learning Tractate Shabbos, the 7th chapter. The name of the chapter is Klal Godel, General Rule, and we are holding on page 71. Start from the top. Ketzira Gores, Ketzira, the first reaping, draws the second reaping along with it to its atonement. Utechina Gereres Techina, and grinding draws the second grinding along. What does it mean? One is dragging the other one, or draws the second one. It says number one, that is the chatos designed or designated to atone for the first violation of reaping, atones also for the second violation of reaping, and similarly with grinding. Aval noida lo al ksira shel zodin Shabbos shigas melochos. However, if it first became known to him about the reaping that he did it with deliberateness regarding the Shabbos, and inadvertence regarding the melachos, meaning knowing that it's Shabbos, but not knowing that the labor that you did is prohibited, for which he is liable to one chatos for each melacha he performed. So this is Zodin Shabbos, Shigas Melachos, knowing that it's Shabbos, deliberateness regarding to Shabbos, and not knowing that the melacha that you do is forbidden. In this case, you would have to bring a korban chatos for each sin offering, for each melacha, for each labor that he performed. The second reaping draws the first reaping and its related grinding along to its atonement. So number 4, that is, this chatos will atone also for the first reaping which was done in the same lapse and the first grinding. That's the interpretation of Rashi. But the opposing grinding, the second violation, stays in its place without atonement, which means Rashi again explains this. He writes, this person is liable to 2 chatos offering for his second set of acts which were performed with inadvertence regarding the melachos. He didn't know that this is forbidden, the grinding. Hence his chatos designated for that second reaping violation cannot atone for the melacha of grinding that was performed at the same time. So he would have to pay one. He has to bring one korban chatos for what was the first melacha of ktsira, of harvesting, and the second chatos for grinding. You know that today a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people, but some people don't notice it, they have black pepper grinder.
Yeah, I know.
So they're so used to during the week to season the food with salt and pepper.
Yeah.
So they take the salt, grind it, pepper, grind it. Shabbos, this is 100% grinding. There's no this is the grinding. That's the av melacha. Yeah. So it is very applicable to today's time.
I have it. I just shake it.
Yeah, but the little fancier cooking, they like it fresh.
I know. We don't do that. We know better.
Yeah. Abaye said no. Grinding also draws the second grinding along. Shem tchino achasi, because it is one prohibition of grinding.
So wait a minute. First he had Ketzira, and then he had
Techina. Yeah, that's the grinding. So he says in number 6, literally, one name of grinding. Abaye holds that the principle of drawing along can be utilized 2 times, even though the first act of grinding itself is atoned for through drawing along. It can draw along the second grinding to its atonement. So he wants to say that according to Abaye, if you did grinding and then another grinding, you would only pay one. You would only bring one chatas. So Umisle Rava Giriro, and does Rava really subscribe to the principle of drawing along? Vaitma, it was stated, if someone ate 2 olive-sized amounts of chelev in one lapse of awareness, and one of those 2 violations became known to him. And he then ate a 3rd olive-sized amount of chelev in the same lap of awareness as the second piece. Rava said the following rulings apply. If he brought a sacrifice for the first violation, Rishon v'Sheni miskaprin, the first and second violations are atoned for, since they both occurred during the same lapse of awareness. Shlishi eino miskapr, but the third is not atoned for. Evi korban al shlishi, he brought a korban for the third violation. Shlishi v'Sheni miskaprin, the third and the second violations are atoned, since they occurred in the same lapse. But Rishon eino miskapr, the first one is not being atoned. Evi korban al emtzoi miskapr kulon, if he brought korban for the middle one, then they're all atoned for. That's a good trick. Meaning, let's say you did, Shmuel, let's say you did this. You did on Shabbos, Ktsira, harvesting.
Yeah.
Then you did grinding. And then you did kneading. Okay? You did 3 melachos on Shabbos. Knowing that it's Shabbos, but not knowing that you're not allowed to do these melachos. So now you bring korban chatas. If you bring korban chatas for the harvesting, the kneading is also atoned. The grinding is atoned. Okay?
Yeah.
So the harvesting and grinding are atoned. But if you bought a korban for the kneading, which is the last malacha, the third one,
yeah,
so the kneading is atoned and the grinding is atoned, but the harvesting is not atoned. If you brought a korban for the middle violation, what is the middle one? Is the grinding. So then all of them are atoned. So the first one, the harvesting,
you would always do that. Then.
If you know if you have the knowledge, if you have the knowledge of which korban to bring to. But if you say, "Oh, I made 3 violations, I'm bringing a korban for the last one," you only took care of the kneading and the grinding, did not take care of the harvesting. That's what he says. If you brought sacrifice for the middle violation, they're all atoned. Why? Because they're all considered the same lapse. There's a connection between the middle one to the third one, between the grinding and the kneading, and there is also a connection between the grinding and the reaping. Abaye Omar, afilu evi korban alachat meyen. Abaye, as opposed to Rava, says it doesn't make a difference. If you brought one korban on one of them, niskapu, you're atoned.
Abaye is meko.
Yeah. Also, the Shammai Bar Svaro, after Rava learned this principle from Abaye, he concurred with it. He was okay with it. After hearing Abaye's ruling about the 3 pieces of chelev, Rava also subscribed to the principle of drawing along. At that point, he made his ruling above concerning reaping and grinding on the Shabbos. If it is so that Rava subscribes to drawing along, the first grinding should draw the second grinding along to its atonement. They should also be considered like every 2 violations of consuming chelev during the same lapse of awareness. Geriro isle, geriro de geriro lesle. Rava subscribed to drawing along. He does not subscribe to drawing along for something that was itself drawn along. Can't do it twice. Can't double dip, as they say. According to both Rava and Abaye, one chatas atones for 2 acts of reaping performed in the same lapse of awareness, even though one violation was committed with inadvertence regarding the Shabbos, and the other with inadvertence regarding Melachos. The Gemara notes Milso, the Pshita Lula Abai v'Rava mibai l'Rabi Zera. The matter that was obvious to Abai and Rava was doubtful to Rabbi Zera. Devoi Rabbi Zera mi Rabbi Yossi v'omri labo minei Rabbi Yirmiyah mi Rabbi Zera. Kol tzov v'tochasi gergeres. If one reaped or ground half of a dried fig-sized amount of produce, b'shiga Shabbos is done melachos, with inadvertence regarding the Shabbos and deliberateness regarding the melachos. And then, without becoming aware of his earlier transgressions, he reaped or ground another half of a dried fig-sized amount. Is this time with deliberateness regarding the Shabbos and inadvertence regarding the melachos. He knew it was Shabbos, but he doesn't know that the melachos that he does are osur. What is the law concerning if the 2 transgressions combine to make the person liable for performing melachos in a total amount equal to the size of a dried fig? They are separate with regard to chatas offerings, and they therefore do not combine to compose the minimum punishable measure. So Rav Asi or Rabbi Zera has stated that since the acts committed with inadvertence regarding the Shabbos are separate from acts committed with inadvertence regarding the melachos in regard to chatas offering, they are separate as well regarding combining to compose the minimum measure. So the Gemara questions the correctness of this inference. And whenever they are considered separate with regard to chatas offering, they do not combine to compose the minimum measure. If someone consumed first he ate 1 piece of chelav and then a second piece of chelav during the lapse, 1 lapse of awareness, but he ate 2 pieces of chelav. He is liable to only 1 chatas. But if he consumed chelav, blood, noiso, and pigul during 1 lapse of awareness, someone placed on his plate all these things: chelav, noiso, pigul, 1 shot. Chelav, blood, noiso, pigul. And he ate his plate. Chayav al kol achas ve'achas. He is liable for each and every one. This is the stringency of many types of prohibited items over multiple pieces of the same item. And the following is the stringency of one type over many types. If he ate half of an olive-sized piece, then he ate another half of an olive-sized piece, they are both from one type of prohibition. He is liable to a chatas. Mishnei minin potu. So listen to this. You have 2 cases. You have a case of eating two sides of chelav, and you have a case of eating chelav, blood, noiso, pigul. Okay, so he says eating different kinds of species is more stringent because you're liable for each and every one. So you'll be liable for the chelav, you're liable for the blood, you're liable for the noiso, you're liable for the pigul. Okay, but this is the kicker. Eating chelav, eating these pieces, if you eat half a kazais from each one, you're not liable. Meaning you ate half a zayis.
Because not each one Okay, if
each one is separate.
Right.
So if you're kazayis from each, then you're liable to all of them, every single one of them. But if you eat half a kazayit from each one, from chelev half a kazayit, from blood half a kazayit, from noisel, from pigul,
right.
You're not liable.
Right.
So that shows there's leniency when it comes to different kinds.
It's the same idea Yom Kippur.
But chelev, if you ate chelev, piece from chelev, half a kazayit chelev here, half a kazayit chelev there, they combine to be one kazayit, and you're liable, but you're only liable to one because you ate chelev.
Right, it's the same thing like Yom Kippur. If you have
so there's chumrah to one type over many types.
Right.
And there's chumrah of many types over one types.
I have to remember not to park the car here on Monday.
Mishnei meaning potu, but if they were from two types of prohibitions, he's exempt. No, Monday they are closed.
Is it closed on Monday?
Yeah, because Tuesday is the day. But maybe now after the whole big break, they might. Yeah.
The rest of the week,
Anyhow, Ravinan
I
Bo.
don't need trouble.
Ravinan Bo.
I understand what he's doing. It's okay.
Ravinan Bo. Mimi nechod chayov tzricha lemeim. Did the Mishnah need to say that if someone ate two pieces the size of half an olive of one type of prohibition, he's liable? V'amar Rish Lakish bo tutnei achmas kinam, with what case? So we're doing kunsha achol b'shnei tamchuim, where he ate it prepared as two types of dishes. Rabbi Yeshua, and the Mishnah follows the view of Rabbi Yeshua. The Omar Tamchuim Mechalkin, who says that different types of dishes, separate, prohibited items into distinct liabilities. Whether he stated his ruling both as a leniency and as a stringency. The Mishnah therefore informs us that he did not state it as a leniency. Rather, he stated it only as a stringency. We have a case where they are considered separate with regard to chatas offering. We come at yet they combine to compose the required amount. The master taught Rish Lakish statement regarding the first case of the Mishnah's second section. The person who ate two pieces of chelev, each the size of half an olive. Vekashele. And what was the difficulty? Anan aseifa masnidan lo. We taught Rish Lakish's statement regarding the last case of the Mishnah, i.e., the person who ate chelev along with other types of prohibited items, each the size of half an olive. And we do not have a difficulty as follows. Mishnei minim pot tzricha lemeima. Did the Mishnah need to say that if someone eats two types of prohibited items, each less than the size of an olive, he is exempt from chatos? Actually, the Mishnah means he ate two pieces of one type of prohibited items. Meaning, why did you call it two types? Because he ate it prepared as two dishes. You can eat chelev prepared one way, and chelev one prepared sweet and one prepared sour. It's both chelev, are prepared differently, different dishes.
You have real
it's like fish. You can eat fish, Moroccan fish. You can eat gefilte fish. It's the same fish.
Right.
But just prepared differently. Yeah. Right? So because he ate it prepared as two dishes. Rabbi Yeshua and follows Rabbi Yeshua, the Omar Tamchuim Mechalkim, who said the different types of dishes separate prohibited items into distinct liabilities. That Rabbi Yeshua stated his ruling both as a leniency and as a stringency. The Gemara objects to this interpretation of the Mishnah, the Seifa Minechol L'Shnei Tamchuim, but from the fact that the last case refers to one type of prohibition cooked in two types of dishes. Miklal de Reisha Min Echod V'Tamchu Echod. It is apparent that the first case of this section refers to one type of prohibition prepared as one dish. Min echod But is it necessary to say that if someone eats a total of an olive-sized piece of one type of prohibition, for example, the chaylev, prepared as one dish, he is liable? Obviously that he is liable in this case. What happened if the awareness only kicked in the middle of the chewing? You started eating, and the idea that you became aware of what you're doing in the middle of it. You ate half an olive, and then you figured out that you're eating chaylev. And its opinion of it follows the view of Rabban Gamliel, who says that there's no such a thing, no awareness for half a measure, which would mean Rabban Gamliel holds that becoming aware that one has committed less than the minimum amount of labor required for a chatas is not considered a true awareness, and does not therefore prevent two half measures from combining. It does not prevent two half measures from combining to create a single liability. So this is discussed at length in the Mishnah in Kresos. It teaches over there that if a person ate half an olive of chaylev and then realized his error, this discovery does not constitute awareness. Hence, when he eats another half, he will have eaten of one olive size in a single lapse of awareness. Only awarenesses of punishable transgression separates two violations into two laps of awareness.
The first part, he ate a half of kazayas without knowing. Then somebody says, "Yeah, it's chaylev." So, and then he gets the other half. So the first half he's putter, and the second one he's chayv.
It's not, because it's only half the
Right.
size of an olive.
So
That's what he says.
Right.
Only awareness of a punishable transgression. Awareness of punishable transgression would mean that he ate the full size of an olive. Eating half a size is not awareness of punishable. It's not a punishable awareness. Only awareness of punishable transgression separates two violations into two laps of awarenesses.
If you think you're eating a salami sandwich and it's chaz or chaz v'shalom, so then what?
And back then you didn't bring a korban chatos.
God forbid.
Someone had two sized amounts of chaylev, obviously the olive sized of chaylev, in one lapse of awareness, and then the first violation became known to him. And then the second violation became known to him. Rabbi Yochanan says he has to bring two. Rish Lakish is more makil in this case, and he says he only bring once.
What's the difference with this case and the other?
That's a full chaylev. He ate the full size.
Okay, here
he has two of them.
He ate
But
one kazayas, a chaylev, and one lapse
but
of
he
awareness.
in one lapse of awareness, right?
Then he ate the second kazayas. Actually, the second is worse than the first, no?
No, listen to this. You have a plate with two pieces of chaylev. Each one is an olive-sized chaylev. Okay.
Okay.
You ate the first one,
Right.
and then you became aware of what you were doing, and then you ate the second one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I mean. And then the first violation became known to him, and then the second violation became known to him. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you have to bring two korban chatos. According to Rish Lakish, you're bringing one. That's it.
Okay.
So he says, we already learned that if a person inadvertently commits the same transgression twice, he is liable to a separate chatos offering for each. If he became aware of one violation before he committed the second, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish now discuss the status of two violations that were committed in the same lapse of awareness, or were afterwards discovered at different times. That's the case over here that we're dealing with. It was discovered at different times. Rabbi Yochanan, because it says vehevi. Because the pasuk states for his sin, he shall bring an offering.
Yeah.
Right? For his sin, he shall bring an offering, indicating that he is liable to a separate chatos for each sin. So Rabbi Yochanan says from the word vehevi, I learned that he has to bring for each and every violation. Rish Lakish however, Rish Lakish says he is exempt from the second chatos because it says mechatosei v'nislach lo, because the pasuk says from his sin, and it will be forgiven for him, indicating that even if the chatos was brought for some of his sins, he is totally forgiven. That's Rish Lakish. The one chatos would do it. Rish Lakish, and now how can Rish Lakish hold that one chatos suffices for all the violations? Ksiv al chatosei vehevi, but it says al chatosei, it says vehevi, that he has to bring for each and every violation, like Rabbi Yochanan says. Rish Lakish would answer leachar kapara. The Gemara answers on his behalf that pasuk refers to a sin discovered after atonement. After atonement was effected for the first sin, then you did it again. You have to bring another chatos. Now, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it is also difficult because it says v'nislach loy, for it is written from his sin, and it will be forgiven for him, indicating that even if the chatos was brought for some of his sins, he is totally forgiven. So why did you say that he has to bring for every single one of them? That's difficulty to Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara says, by my skin, what are we dealing with? He ate first one olive size, where he first ate some chelev the size of an olive, and then he took another half the size of an olive. And he became known about the olive size that he ate, olive size portion. And during the same lapse of awareness, he ate another half olive-sized piece of chelev. So you might have thought to say that the two half olive-sized pieces should combine to make him liable for eating a whole olive-sized piece of chelev. Kamashma, the pasuk therefore informs us that the first half olive-sized portion is atoned for with the chatos brought for the olive-sized portion that was eaten at the same time. So he doesn't have to bring a korban for the half olive size. Amar Ravina Ravashi, Ravina said to Ravashi, they disagree about a case where they discovered the second violation before designation of the chatos for the first violation. So you found out about the second violation before you designated the chatos for the first one. And they disagree about the following matter. The mouse of others mechalkus. Rabbi Yochanan holds that awarenesses also separate transgression into distinct liabilities. The fact that you became aware, the moment you become aware, it considers it one liability. Umar Sova of Rosh Mechalkus and the Rish Lakish hold the designation of chatos offerings separate transgression into distinct liabilities. So one is looking at the yedios. Rabbi Yochanan looks at the yedios, awarenesses that separates the transgressions, and Rish Lakish looks at the afroshis, which means the designations of a korban, and only that considers separate transgression. But once you already designated a korban, Rish Lakish would agree with Rabbi Yochanan the chayav shtaim that it would be liable to two. Because once he designated the korban, that considers it as one transgression, and then if he transgressed after the designation, he would have to bring another korban. Or dilma, or we should say that maybe we can say that even after the designation, there's still machlokes. There's still not. Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish is still not agreeing. And this is what they're arguing about. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan would say that afroshos, the designation constitutes separate transgression, and Rish Lakish would say no, kaporis mechakos, only after the whole process was done, you brought the korban, you achieved atonement, and then you did another sin, another transgression, that would constitute a separate, and then it may meaning that only then you would have to bring another korban. But before designation, Rabbi Yochanan would agree with Rish Lakish that he only has to bring one. So we might say that the machlokes is not between awareness and designation; it's rather between designation and atonement. And before designation, before designation, they both agree that you would have to only bring one. Or Dilma, or we can say ben bezu machlokes, or we can say that they're arguing in all different kinds of scenarios. Omar le mistabo ben bezu machlokes, and Ravina said. Rav Ashi replies to Ravina, and he tells him, mistabro, it makes sense to me, it is reasonable, ben bezu, uven bezu machlokes, that there is a dispute in both cases. Case of discovery before designation and the case of discovery after designation. This for if you think that they disagree only koydem afrosho before about discovery before designation, which is what we call before awareness. Aval achar afrosho, but regarding a discovery after designation. Moedel Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan the Chav Shtayim, Rish Lakish would agree with Rabbi Yochanan that he's liable to two. Adam Leikim, two chatas offering. Adam Leikim lakro lechar kapor. Adam Leikim lei kro lechar kapor. And instead of interpreting the verse cited by Rabbi Yochanan in support of his own view as referring to discovery after atonement, lo k'milachar afrosho. He, the scholar defending Rish Lakish, should have interpreted the pasuk as referring to discovery after designation. V'yachar afrosho pligi, and if they disagree only about discovery after designation, aval koydem afrosho, but regarding discovery before designation, moedel Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan would agree with Rish Lakish. Moedel Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish, then the is only liable to one offering. Instead of interpreting the verse cited by Rish Lakish as referring to a case where the person first ate chelev, the size of an olive and a half, the scholar defending Rabbi Yochanan should have interpreted it as referring to discovery of the second violation before designation of the chatos for the first violation. Apparently, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish disagree with one another whether the second violation was discovered before or after an offering was designated for the first violation. So they disagree in all scenarios. Perhaps the scholar himself was unsure about it, of at what point Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish disagree. And he was stating his responses in the form, if you want to say as follows, if you want to say that Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish disagree about a case of discovery before designation, Rabbi Yochanan, how could Rabbi Yochanan interpret the pasuk bechazayis umechza as a case where someone ate chelev the size of an olive and a half? And if you want to say that they disagree about this discovery after designation, that you found out that you ate another one after you already designated a korban for the first one, a sin offering. Rish Lakish, how could Rish Lakish explain the pasuk v'lachar kapora? Perforce as a case where the second violation was discovered after atonement was effected for the first violation via an offering. The Gemara introduces another case of multiple infractions. According to the one who holds that a definite asham does not require prior awareness of the violation to be effective. So this requires a little bit of explanation. It says, according to the opinion in Asham, which is a guilt offering, can effect atonement even though the person was not aware of his violation at the time the offering was sacrificed, which is a unique situation. Achieve atonement even not knowing that you did anything. This dispute is found in Tractate Krisus in 22a, where Rabbi Akiva obligates someone who is unsure if he benefited from hekdesh, from a consecrated food, to bring an asham tolui, which is a guilt offering. Tolui, it depends whether I did it or not. A typical case would be where there were two pieces of meat, and one consecrated as hekdesh, and one was unconsecrated, and the person ate one piece but could not identify, he's non-Kohen, he was not allowed to eat consecrated food, and now there's no way to identify which one was what. So Rabbi Akiva would obligate him to bring an Asham Tolui. Asham Tolui is usually brought in cases where certain violations would be subject to a chatos. If you would have known, you would have, for sure that you ate, you would have bought korban chatos. Here, if the person had certainly benefited from hekdesh, it would be liable to a definite asham. Nevertheless, Rabbi Akiva states that if he's unsure, if he committed this violation, he is obligated to bring an asham tolui. Furthermore, just as in the usual case of asham tolui, the person is obligated to bring a chatos if he ever determines that he committed the sin. Here also, he will have to bring a definite asham if he ever determines that he did, in fact, benefit from hekdesh. At that point, he would also be obligated to pay the value of the item and the 1/5 surcharge to hekdesh. Rabbi Tarfon disagrees with Rabbi Akiva, stating that an asham tolui can atone as much as a definite asham can, since they are the same type of offering. This case is unlike the typical case of an asham tolui, where the person is obligated to bring a female chatos if he finds out that he definitely sinned. Then his male ram brought as the asham tolui cannot affect the atonement that the chatos can affect. However, in this case, the person can bring one male ram and money equal to the value of the item plus 1/5, and stipulate that if he did benefit from hekdesh, the offering should be a definite asham, and the money should serve as a payment to hekdesh. And if the doubt will never be resolved, the animal should be an asham tolui, and the money would be as a donation to hekdesh. Now, according to Rabbi Tarfon, if the person eventually discovers that he did in fact eat the consecrated piece, he need not bring asham because his prior offering already affected atonement, even though he was not aware of the violation at the time the asham was offered. It follows that according to his view, a definite asham does not require prior knowledge to effect atonement. Ula now states another consequence of Rabbi Tarfon's position. Rashi apparently holds that Rabbi Akiva is the Tana who grants significance to awareness regarding an asham. Tosfos is also another Rishonim discussing this subject at length. Amarula leman deomar asham vaday lo yibaya dir b'tchila. According to the one who holds that a definite asham does not require prior awareness of the violation to be effective, one cohibits inadvertently 5 times with a betrothed slave woman, he is liable to only one asham, even if the violations were committed during different lapses of awarenesses. We'll continue this discussion, God willing, tomorrow.